And with that, what a pleasure. 3-time Pro Bowler in Super Bowls, 18 years in this league. Matt Hasselbeck, Seahawks, Colts, Packers, Titans, joining us here in the herd. Let's hear it for our guy. Listen, to get you out of that nice place you always join us live is a real win for us.
Hey, I'm coaching high school football, man. You know, I'm working, man. You know, let's go.
On the flight back, you got your game plan all
already
out?
did it. Did it last night, you know, scripted for today's practice. Got a script for tomorrow, 7-on-7 team, you know, all the good stuff.
So I want to start with a London game. So a lot of times when I watch a young quarterback, I tend to watch feet. Is he frenetic? I tend to watch where's the head going. A couple of times yesterday with Caleb Williams, I mean, it was like left, middle, right, middle, left. And I was like, okay, that's good. That's you when you're older. That feels like it takes a while. Some guys maybe have it innately. But I do feel like the feet, where he's looking, it feels like there's growth here, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's eyes then feet. You know, usually most teams, the Bears don't have it, but they got like a stripe on the middle of the helmet there, right? And so when you're studying film, you're looking behind the quarterback. That stripe helps the quarterback coach know where the eyes are, because you can't see the eyes, but that tape, you know, on the helmet tells you like, are your eyes in the right spot? Okay, so it really starts there. I think what I see out of Caleb, though, is like when you're talking about his footwork, he's throwing on time, in rhythm with the quick game. And that's very important because you're avoiding sacks. You're getting the ball out of your hands into the hands of the athletes. But then where he's exceptional is when plays take a little bit longer and you're throwing the ball downfield. His scramble ability is translating from the college game to the pro game. And that doesn't always happen with guys. So I think the combination of, obviously they're playing good around him, playing well, but the quick game is working, and then the exceptional explosive plays that you saw at SC, they're still there as well.
You know, he really does have a power arm. I think he likes to throw from the pocket. He was asked that a lot in college. He goes, I'd actually rather be in the pocket. I think some guys like to move because they question their ability there.
Yeah.
I think Caleb would like to sit in the pocket for 90% of the stuff.
I think there's still a lot of room for growth with him, obviously. Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, I think it's going to get hard at some point for them. Like, it's been pretty smooth right now.
Yeah, bad teams.
Yeah, I don't want to say it that way, but yeah. But I think it was Houston they played, and it didn't go as well.
That's right.
And I think that's probably more what you're going to see out of that team. I think the Bears are doing a great job of this. As you're winning games, you're developing your young quarterback. Some people throw a young quarterback out there and they lose, and they're like, oh, well, we got to lose because we need our young quarterback to develop. The Bears aren't doing that. I think they're playing really well around him, and I think the future is bright. I don't know if it's this year. I'm not as sold on that team, but clearly the game in London was huge.
So, you know, if a team is losing, it can be a lot of things. It can be injuries. I mean, the Rams had cluster injuries at wide receiver and O-line. Okay, it can happen. But yesterday, Philly's got both their receivers, Saquon Barkley. I mean, they got dudes. That's a great roster. And this worries me. First two series, off a bye, offensive coach. Jalen's 0 for 5 and 2 punts. Matt, you give McVay off a bye, that first series, or Andy Reid, like, I'm sorry, but isn't that an issue?
No, I mean, listen, everyone's got injuries, like you said, but the key injuries. I think for Philly, they lose those two wide receivers, they're a completely different team. Yeah. And then when you come back, like, you just never know. Like, sometimes it takes guys. Some guys are rusty. Some guys are just ready to roll. I think Philly, I don't think the sky is falling as much on Philly as I don't personally think the sky is falling in Philly the way other people do. I think Philly rights the ship. They have not looked good. They've looked very, very bad. Sort of trust the pieces there if they can get healthy.
The pieces are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's transition there with like new coordinators, just a lot of stuff and hitting adversity. I do believe that this team, they'll pull together. They won't pull apart. I do believe in Jalen Hurts, the leader. And I think that's something that doesn't show up in stats. A lot of people, especially in the media, they love to just get on the stats. And, like, while that's important, there's another aspect to being a franchise quarterback that I believe Jalen Hurts has, and that's leadership. And I think that counts for something.
Yeah.
And also the rest of the division kind of stinks with the exception of Washington. Yeah.
So there was I don't think hockey guys or football players don't quit because you get hurt. But there's a tempo. The governor was turned down on the Cowboys yesterday. Like, it's just not quite there. And it's easy for us to blame Dak or Mike McCarthy, but your owner's your GM, and they've been hit and miss on drafting. Not terrible. But I do feel like, and I've said this about the Lakers for years, is that there's too many people that are friends and relatives of the Lakers and not enough outside influence. And I feel with the Cowboys, there's a lot of Jones in the building. And it's like it's when they succeeded, Parcells came in and Jimmy Johnson came in. And I look at this organization as kind of insular. Matt, Baltimore ran them over. Detroit ran them over. I watched last year Green Bay. The Saints ran them over. Is it just possible? It's a mediocre roster.
Yeah, I think injuries are huge. You take away some superstars. You take away just one guy. Take away Micah Parsons, it's a different team, right? And I'm not in the building, so I can't speak to that, but I can speak to the film. And I would just say this: when a defense, you mentioned tempo, when they struggle to line up, then Dallas defense used to be the aggressor. They used to come out under Dan Quinn and had this idea no, we don't even need our offense to score. We're going to score. That was the mindset of the Dallas defense. Now you see the Dallas defense not even lining up on time. The ball is snapped. The D-line doesn't even have their hands in the dirt. They're in a bunch set, a cluster formation, and the DBs haven't even decided who's got who's got inside, who's got outside. They're not even lining up. And, it just kind of reminds me a little bit too, that's pre-snap. Now talk about post-snap. So I heard the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, Jeff Hafley, say this once, and I thought it was excellent. How much you love your teammate and how accountable you are to your teammate can be measured on defense by how close you are to the ball when the whistle is blown. Pursuit, effort. You hear people this year talking about guys on defense making business decisions. They don't want to tackle a Derrick Henry. They don't want to tackle in a game that's already out of hand, stuff like that. I think effort in your pursuit to the ball matters a lot on defense too. And that's another thing. Just put it on the list that I think needs to get corrected in Dallas.
How much is this, though? Detroit's very unique. The Patriots could do this at their prime, is that they can run with power, they can do trick plays, they can be cute. It's very rare, usually because of a salary cap, you got a hole. If you do the power game, you're not cute. Baltimore for years didn't have great receivers, Mark Andrews, but they could do the power game, but they weren't going to beat you down the field. And I watch this team, and I'm like, they're a little like a younger version of the Niners. They got personnel. They kind of do everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was fun to watch, right? Detroit's offense.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, and listen, Detroit, if you've been following the NFL for a long time, Detroit's been picked on. They've been the joke, for many years. They've been the team that no one counts on. They've been bullied a little bit,
yeah.
Right? And when you play in the NFL, it's very common when you go out and you're leaving the locker room, pep talk or whatever, the coach or a guy on the team says, "We're going to go out and we're going to hit them in the mouth in their house," but it's just talk.
Right.
When Detroit says it, it feels different. When Dan Campbell says it, it feels different. There's something about this team that's fed up. And I worked with Rex Ryan for a long time. And, I remember Rex really believing in Dan Campbell and really believing in this Detroit team. And he would talk about the bully. And he's like, you just watch. One of these days, Detroit's going to say enough. And they're going to go into the bully's house. And in my mind, I'm picturing George McFly and Biff, get your damn hands off her, Biff, and then you knock them out. You hit them in the mouth at their place on prime time. This is the Dallas Cowboys. Who better to do it against? And that's what they did. And everything was different after that. Everything. And that's how I feel about this Detroit team. They sent a message. They lost their best player. They did whatever they wanted to do in the passing game, perfect passer rating. They did whatever they wanted to do in the running game. They're trying to throw touchdowns to offensive linemen. They're throwing hook and laterals to offensive linemen. They sent a message. And Ben Johnson, he could have left last year and been a head coach.
Right.
He said, no, there's something special brewing here. I'm staying. Maybe I'm not ready to be a head coach. This is what I'm meant to do. This is what I love to do. So I think they got something special. Now they're going to hit adversity because they lost, Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
But the trade deadline hasn't happened.
That's right.
There's players all around the league on bad teams, I don't want to name names, but a Max Crosby or somebody like that.
That's right.
That would fit nicely. And they're saying, man, get me to Detroit. There's something special about Detroit. I want to be on a team like that. That's how I play the game, and I want to be on that team.
So tonight, I think it's very interesting. So my general rule on football is if you are talented and play poorly, like the Cowboys, they'll probably play better next week. I don't think they're great. So Aaron Rodgers probably had his worst game as a pro. I mean, all 3 picks were bad. Aaron has maybe one of those a month. He had 3 in one game. And my guess is they made a move at OC, which I think was the right move. Sometimes it's uncomfortable with a new guy, but I actually think the Jets will play really, really well tonight. I have to ask you, I know the guy was in the building, but replacing the play caller, how difficult is it?
It's hard. I've been a part of it. It's tough. But it's in the short term. I agree with you. It's a good thing. It's a wake-up call. Things change. A fresh set of eyes. Someone who's had success somewhere else understands, like, you know what? I know what this team can. It's not about what we can't do. It's about what this team can do, okay? But I think the other thing that I don't think people ever talk about is it now becomes a blind date for the Buffalo Bills. They don't know. Like, right. It's so much analytics and film study and, like, all right, on 3rd and 3 to 6, they're 65% that. On 3rd and 7 to 10, they're 32% this. Like, it's so much analytics that goes into it now. Now it's literally like you don't really know. Like, in fact, if I was the Jets, I don't think I would have announced who the play caller was because that even gives them more of a competitive advantage.
Right.
So, like, they don't really know Jeff Ulbrich. Like, I mean, I know Jeff Ulbrich, played against him for years. He coached me in Seattle. But, like, I don't know. What's he going to do as a head coach? Is he going to be a guy that's going for it on 4th down? You know, what are they going to do offensively? Are they going to be more like what Downing's done in the past? Are they going to have more control for Aaron Rodgers? Less? Like, so I just really think that you're going to see a different tempo and energy because there's going to be a part of the team in New York that's like, man, we let our coaching staff down. We let our head coach down. We let our OC down. We got to play different. We got to play more the way that they would have wanted us to play. Mm-hmm. And then also just the unknown. And I think that's a tough thing. Now in the long run, I think it catches up to you.
Yeah.
But for right now,
tonight,
look out.
So, you know, it's interesting. I've defended Lamar Jackson for 3 years on this show, that he's really much more consistent in the pocket than people think. The quarterback that isn't now is Josh Allen. So he plays tonight. So I think Lamar is remarkable, but I want to stay on the Buffalo Jets game. What troubles me with Kyler Murray's inconsistency, I almost feel like, because I've had it so sourced from players, executives to coaches around Kyler, there's some immaturity issues, there's some commitment issues. I don't hear that with Josh. My sources say he's totally committed, immature kid, locker room leader. We are getting to a point, though, with Josh is I feel he's a bit OC dependent, although everybody is. The inconsistency is a bit troubling. Where does that come from? It's not that he loses arm strength or ability.
No, I think he's great. I mean, I think Josh Allen's one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever watched. Sometimes you can try to do too much. Sometimes you can be a little careless. Like, he's careless with his body. And, like, you know, Andrew Luck was that way. Like, he was careless with his body. And it's one of the reasons that he was so fun to watch. And his teammates loved him. Like, man, this dude is laying it out on he's laying it on the line for us, for our team. But there's a fine line between being careless with your body and being careless with the football. And, like, I think that's the tough thing. And so how do you do that as a quarterback with split-second decisions? And, you know, the best way that I've ever heard it described, Clyde Christensen was the quarterback coach in Indy. We were coaching Andrew Luck, and Andrew was kind of going through one of these, you know, parts of the season, just like Josh Allen has had sometimes. And so Clyde brings this admiral in from the Navy to talk about how they train fighter pilots, to cut it loose, to trust their training, be aggressive. You're the best in the world at what you do. But at the same time, that fighter jet that you have doesn't belong to you. You don't get to just hit eject whenever you want. Like, it belongs to the taxpayers. It's millions and millions of dollars. And in the same way, that football doesn't belong to you. You need to be more careful with that football. Now, how do you do it? Do you play defensive like a driver's ed 16-and-a-half-year-old? No, you don't. You cut it loose and you trust your training. Yeah. But you have to have respect for the fact that, like, if you want to be reckless with your body, fine. You don't get to be reckless with that football.
I love that coaches bring in fighter pilots. That is great.
It's kind of like one of those Mr. Miyagi moments, too, because you get a big game the next day, and you're like, all right, you know, what's the first 15 plays going to be? And then all of a sudden, like, an admiral from the Navy comes in, and you're like, I mean, what is this? Wax on, wax off. What is this even good for? Why do we need to know about fighter pilots? And then all of a sudden, like, it's over, and you're just like, oh, like the light bulb goes off, like, That was epic. Like, that was like next level. It was Hall of Fame coaching. And I'll never forget it. I mean, it was years ago. It was probably 10, 11 years ago. And, I'm coaching high school football now, and I still look for those types of nuggets because I think it's even harder to coach.
Kids are more distracted.
Well, it's harder to coach really creative players who feel like, hey, I already know, coach, I know. And so, like, think about what that's like coaching the game's best, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, those types of guys. You have to get creative.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.